Hey guys, this is Outspeed. I know it's been a while since I've actually done anything that involved my face, but I figured, for this, I wanted to, you know, do different things, try different styles. I'm hoping to try and get better technology for this stuff, but then again, I've been saying that for, I think, about a year now, and nothing's changed. But, money's kind of tight, and I haven't been able to really uh, do all the things that I wanted to do. So that's kind of why, technology is the way it is. But for this video, it's just me speaking a little bit about, um, I guess you can say, the last movie I'm going to review this year if I don't watch Star Wars The Last Jedi. So, I'm sorry this video took me so long. I guess I was still trying to gather all my thoughts about this movie and essentially what I felt about it in after a good time of thinking about it and after seeing it about 2 times. So, this is a part one of a two-parter kind of review. The first part is going to be just me. The second part is going to involve me and my brother. And I'll go more into detail with the second part than the first one. But the first one is just basically going to be a straight up review about, the movie. So I saw Justice League, I think around, I saw it around November 18th, which was the day after it came out for me. And I happen to have seen it. I happen to have been blessed to have seen it in the IMAX theater, where things are a lot more wider, the screen's more wider, there's more surround sound and all of that. So I was really happy to have been able to see it in, theater, in that kind of IMAX theater. And I saw it with my brother. We both saw it. We both made a day out of it. And when I first saw the film, I was just blown away by how incredible it was. I was just blown away by how huge in scale the movie really is. And I was just happy to see the characters interact. I was so happy to see all the big battles that were going on. I saw Superman come back. It was all amazing and I loved it. But then I saw it again, but this time in regular movie theaters with regular surround, but in 3D. And I guess the IMAX really does enhance the experience a little bit more, because when I saw it the second time in a regular movie theater, I was completely unimpressed by everything. And it was at that point that I realized, this movie was not as good as I thought it initially was. So then I actually watched it like in the regular theater in its entirety, and I realized there were a lot of cracks in this film. And not just and even back in the IMAX theater, I knew there was something off about it. And but it was the experience that kind of threw everything else out of the way for me to enjoy it this first time. The second time, it was just bare bones movie theater, and at that point, I realized something was off with this movie. So, to start it off, oh yeah, by the way, yes, I do still kind of have a cold. I'm trying to get over that. So, to start it off, the movie begins with Batman. Well, no, it begins with a video recording of Superman, and it was that very first scene that put all my worries at the forefront, because that CG, it was the CGI version of Superman. Because in when it came to the reshoots for this movie, Henry Cavill wasn't allowed to shave his mustache because Paramount wanted it for Mission Impossible 6. So it was very noticeable. His lip was all curled up, and the top part of his lip just looked really, it looked bad. It looked really bad. And that was the first indication that this movie was going to have a lot of CGI and editing problems. So then we get to the rest of the scene where we have this amazing Batman scene that I honestly really loved because it felt like a Batman animated series kind of thing where you got Batman, shadowing the night in Gotham, and then he pulls this thug up, he has him tied up, then a parademon comes out of nowhere, and Bruce finds out that this sort of sound frequency is what triggers them. So it then goes to that thug saying that they came because Superman's gone, what about the rest of us? And then Batman goes. Then we get this beautiful opening sequence of, the Justice League title screen, all the directors and stuff. And I really feel like this was definitely a Zack Snyder kind of scene, but apparently Joss Whedon chose the music. So then we get Wonder Woman. She has her great scene stopping a robbery. Then we get to Batman, who's off to find Aquaman. Now, the thing about this scene is that there are actually two versions. There's one that Zack Snyder shot, and there's one that Joss Whedon shot. For the Joss Whedon scenes, you can obviously tell which one's Joss and which one is Zack by looking at Ben Affleck's face and seeing how bloated it is in that scene. So yeah, I'm not gonna go over the whole movie per se, but just some key points that I liked and key points that I didn't like. So, with the things that I did like about this movie, and I now realize that I was just kind of going over the movie in its entirety when I feel like, I don't want to go over the whole movie because that's going to take too long. So instead, I'm just going to go over the things that I liked about the film and the things I didn't like, just to make it a little easier. So, the things that I did like, the pros per se, I'd say it was definitely the characters. The characters in the Justice League movie interact with each other in such a seamless and very constructive way that I really do feel like they are a team in the process. They really do work together, they really have a good chemistry with one another, and I really feel that these characters really do intertwine with each other's universes in a very seamless way that brings them all together to go for a common goal. I liked the way Batman interacted with the team as the sort of retired leader who's trying to slowly edge Wonder Woman into being the one who leads them. Wonder Woman's character, of course, was it was basically what I expected from the Wonder Woman film. A very good mix of maturity, but still a little bit of naivety from the Wonder Woman film. I liked the way Batman and Wonder Woman interacted with one another because I think they have a more grounded understanding of each other. Mostly because they're the oldest members of the league, and they're the ones who pretty much kick-started this entire Justice League in the beginning. I also like when they fought with one another in their different ideologies, in which Wonder Woman believes Batman should get over, the whole Superman dying thing, and then Batman retaliates by bringing up Steve Trevor. And it's in this interaction that I really feel like Batman knew what he was doing, and Batman is naturally a jerk, so he did what he had to do in order to get Wonder Woman out of her shell and have her be the leader that she's supposed to be. He could have went a better way at it, but that's just how he did it. Aquaman in this film, I really did like Aquaman. He was kind of like that surfer dude who had reluctance on joining the league, but ended up coming through at the last minute because he felt there was something he had to do. Flash was hilarious in this film, which I kind of expected because it's Ezra Miller playing him, and Ezra Miller has very good comedic tone, and I really feel like Ezra Miller really did a great job in this film, and he was really the star breakout character that I can't wait to see for Flashpoint. And then there was Cyborg. People were saying that Cyborg didn't have a lot of scenes, but I felt like he was really a substantial part of the movie, and I really felt like he had a lot of the drive in this film to better himself, to be more than just a weapon who was supposed to, I guess, kill off humanity, but ended up doing some good with it. And then, of course, you got Superman, who honestly I feel like Superman really did come out. He came out swinging basically because that whole scene where he was just punching and kicking the entire league, and he was just this weird frenzy where he had to try and remember everything. It was just a crazy scene altogether, and I really loved it. And then he came at the last minute, at the end, being this sort of mix between the Man of Steel Superman and the animated series Superman, all combined to this perfect little bun that really showed Superman being the hopeful and the hopeful, prideful, and all around happy Superman that everyone's so used to. So that was a good treat to see. um, so I think that's all I can really say that was good about the movie. And if that's all the good I have to say about the film, there's going to be a lot of cons that I'm going to have to say now. So the cons. One of the problems with Justice League that I had was the pacing. And you can really feel the pacing was seriously off because you got two directors who are doing the same movie. You got Zack Snyder, who wants to go for a more deeper, more philosophical, political speaking, darker film. And then you got Joss Whedon, who's more comic book like, who prefers the more humorous, fun, face falling and boobs sort of style. And when you try to put them together, they just don't mesh well because they're two different styles. And when you got two different styles put into the same movie, there's bound to be a lot of key differences in tone and shifting the pace of the film. And it's the same problem that I have with most Marvel films, in that it sort of lingers on the heart-to-heart moments and then just throws them away for humorous scenes. And I feel that's the problem with Justice League because it tries to do that, and that's more Joss Whedon and WB's fault for ever going into that route. And I'll go into more detail about that when I have my brother here and we do our review, because that's going to be what the second part of this is going to be about. So, another thing that I didn't like was actually Superman's screen time being way too short. Superman had some really short screen time, even though I felt he should have been one of the bigger key points of this film. And I feel like he should have had more scenes. And whether that was on Joss Whedon, WB, or Zack Snyder's case, I still feel like he should have had more scenes, and I feel like should have been more impact to them. Which was what Zack Snyder had in mind, but apparently WB didn't want that, and they replaced it for more humor, which really pissed me off a lot. Steppenwolf. What to say about Steppenwolf? Except that he was such a lackluster and mediocre villain that I feel like he was just an unnecessary aspect to the Justice League film. They should have at least tried to build him up a little bit more better. And I feel like that's what Zack Snyder had in mind, but Joss Whedon and WB completely messed it up, and his character ended up being just as generic as a Marvel villain. And that's what annoyed me the most, because I feel like Steppenwolf had so much potential because he was an unknown, but he ended up being just as lame and just as predictable as his comic book counterpart. And then we got the score with Danny Elfman. Now, I like Danny Elfman's old music when it came to the Spider-Man franchise. But here, he really, really did not bring anything substantial to the soundtrack of Justice League. Save for a few tracks that I would say is Batman on the Roof. Danny Elfman just completely crapped all over this movie's soundtrack. He did not try at all. He used storyboards in order to make the music, and I was so disappointed because there was no song that stood out for me. They all were mediocre. They all were just unappealing. And then there was the fact that he used his old Batman theme to integrate into the film, which I was happy to hear, but it doesn't work for this Batman. It does not work. This is a different Batman from the animated series. This is a Batman who's been through a lot more than what the animated series has. So when they brought the old soundtrack, the old song in, it just didn't fit for me. It felt off. And then he brought in Superman's old theme, which it did not fit in the slightest. Sorry. It did not fit at all because this is not the same Superman. This is a different Superman that has a different sort of backstory. He came from a version of the world where they hated him, despised him, where they just considered him a threat. You can't bring that kind of theme into this Superman because it just doesn't fit. So I hope they don't make this mistake again in other films. But yeah, all in all, the Justice League movie is a film that I kind of had fun watching, but at the same time was very disappointed by how lackluster it was. It felt so bare bones and it felt soulless to me. Like there was no heart put into this film. It felt like a byproduct of the company, which was what it was essentially. It was a movie that had the potential to be good, but it was just stripped away of all its heart and all of its actual depth and turned into a lackluster, mediocre film that I felt Zack Snyder deserved better. But WB is so reactionary that they completely stripped this movie of all of its depthness, its dark themes, and its tonally shifted it into something of a Marvel film just so they can compete with Marvel. And WB is supposed to be this director's company that's supposed to be director driven and somehow show its strength, but it did not show strength with this movie. It showed a very flawed and mediocre and reactionary sort of tone to it that does not give me the hope that the DCEU can thrive from this point forward. Only time will tell what the DCEU will do and what Warner Brothers will do, but as it stands, Justice League is a colossal failure in that they tried to erase Zack Snyder's vision to go for something a little more brighter, and they failed. They failed completely, and they ruined a director's dream. That's all I can say about this film. I don't want to see Justice League anymore because it disappointed me. It just disappointed me, and it just reminds me of how money-grubbing WB actually is when it comes to the DCEU, and how they just don't care. They don't care about the DCEU. They just want their money. And I'll go more into detail about that in the part 2 with my brother, because I kind of want him to hear this too. I want him to sort of understand why my issues with Justice League are, and hopefully he gets a better in-depth understanding of why Justice League didn't do good in reviews. So, with that being said, that's all I have to say for this video. If I had to give the score, it would definitely be a... On my Instagram, I gave it a 7 out of 10. But I had to rethink it a little bit more, and I'm going to have to turn it into a 6. This is by far, in my opinion, one of the worst the worst DCEU movie. Well, I guess, no, it's second to worst to Suicide Squad, and I wouldn't say it's the worst comic book movie I've ever seen, but it is one of the worst DCEU movies that I've seen in quite some time. So, that's my review. It sucks that I have to give it a 6 out of 10 because I had so much hype for this film. I was so ready for this film to be great. I was ready for this film to blow me away, to get great reviews, and to essentially to bring me back to the Justice League animated series back in the early 2000s. That's what I wanted the most. I wanted this movie to bring me back to those nights on Saturday where I would sit up and watch the Justice League animated series and see all these great characters interact with one another, especially with Justice League Unlimited. That's what I wanted. Instead, I got mediocrity, I got the byproduct of a director's studio, and I got none of that at all. So, yeah, that's why I had to give it a 6 out of 10. Well, that's my review for this film. This is only part 1. Part 2 will be coming at some point, and there might be some videos in between, but that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think about the film. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it better than you thought it was? And be sure to look out for part 2, where I go more into detail on my thoughts about what happened with this film in its behind the scenes moments. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later.